The convoy drifted through the quiet abyss, engines humming with the steady rhythm of a crew that had done this 100 times before yet never shook the habit of glancing nervously at their scanners. Cargo holds were full, industrial alloys, processed fuel, and medical shipments bound for colonies that relied on Earth's lifelines. Captain Marcus Hale sat rigid in the command chair, hands clasped behind his back as his eyes traced the glow of stars across the viewport. His crew was disciplined, but even discipline bent under the weight of unspoken fear. "Clear lanes," First Officer Aaron Voss muttered, breaking the silence, his voice a mix of cynicism and relief. "No shadows lurking. We may just live to deliver crates again." Marcus didn't smile. He rarely did. "Stay sharp. That's what they want us to think." Voss leaned back, arms crossed. "Paranoia doesn't keep hulls intact. Guns do. Shame we only brought freighters instead of warships." The remark earned him a cold glance. Marcus trusted Voss, but he loathed that attitude, bitterness in place of vigilance. The crew's chatter stilled as proximity alarms chimed, low and insistent. Red arcs spread across the tactical screen. "They were waiting," Marcus whispered. From the dark void emerged ships not of human make, jagged silhouettes with serrated hulls that reflected light like broken blades. The Threx Dominion had come. Their vessels moved with animal aggression, swooping in tight formation, surrounding the convoy in a tightening noose. "Contact, multiple signatures," a young officer barked. His hands shook as he tried to stabilize the display. 9 no, 12 ships closing fast. Marcus snapped into motion. Evasive maneuvers. Deploy escorts to screen the freighters. But it was futile. The Dominion had chosen the battlefield with precision. The convoy's escort craft rose bravely, small fighters darting between bulkier freighters, but the Threx ships were built for slaughter. Plasma bolts streaked across the void, tearing through human shields like paper. One escort blossomed into fire, debris spinning into darkness. Another was gutted before it could even fire. On the bridge, Voss muttered through clenched teeth, "This isn't a raid. It's a demonstration." He was right. The Dominion didn't waste energy on simple piracy. They conquered through terror, leaving survivors to tell of overwhelming force. Marcus steadied himself as the deck shuddered from a near strike. "Signal Earth Command. Get a distress beacon out now." "Already jammed," another crewman reported. "They knew we'd try." The alien ships tightened formation, firing in calculated bursts, crippling but not destroying. They wanted prisoners, not wreckage. Boarding lances cut into the convoy's largest freighter, glowing red as they fused alien steel to human hull. The sound of metal screaming under stress echoed through the corridors like a death knell. Moments later, the bridge doors shuddered and buckled under explosive charges. Smoke poured in, followed by towering figures in spiked armor. The Threx warriors strode forward with cruel efficiency, their reptilian forms glinting in the harsh light. Eyes like molten gold swept over the humans, measuring prey rather than foes. "Hold your ground," Marcus barked, drawing his sidearm. A few crew followed suit, but the fight was hopeless. Energy bolts flared, crew fell, and the bridge was drowned in chaos. Then the leader came. Massive, scar-laden, draped in armor that seemed forged from the remains of conquered worlds, General Kravax. His steps were deliberate, resonant, a predator savoring inevitability. Marcus leveled his pistol, but Kravax swatted it aside as one might brush away an insect. The alien's clawed hand seized Marcus by the collar, lifting him effortlessly from the deck. "You command this vessel?" Kravax's voice was guttural, reverberating through the air like a grinding engine. Marcus met the golden eyes, without flinching. "I do." Kravax's teeth flashed in something between a grin and a snarl. "Good. You will live to see your kind broken. Your people will crawl until their knees are bloodied, or they will be ash. We will decide which." Voss struggled against the grip of another warrior, blood streaking his temple. "Earth won't bow," he spat, voice ragged. Kravax's laugh was cruel, resonant enough to silence the room. "They will send someone. They always do. A diplomat. A hero. A savior. He leaned close to Marcus, breath like burning metal. And when they do, they will kneel alongside you. That is the fate of prey. Marcus felt the weight of those words, but he did not allow himself to spare. His eyes narrowed, cold fire burning where fear threatened to root. If Earth sends someone, it won't be a savior, he said quietly. It will be your ending. The general dropped him with a dismissive shove, as though a man's defiance meant nothing beside the inevitability of chains. Yet Kravax's expression flickered. Irritation, perhaps, or recognition that even cornered prey could bare teeth. The surviving crew were bound, dragged through the corridors to the alien flagship, its interior a labyrinth of spikes and shadows. The air reeked of oil and blood. Marcus counted his men. Fewer than half survived the boarding. He saw fear in their eyes, but also anger. Their fate was sealed in chains, yet their spirit, fragile as it was, endured. In the cavernous hold of the flagship, Kravax stood before the prisoners like a monarch surveying livestock. His warriors fanned out, weapons ready, but relaxed, too confident. "You are ours," Kravax declared, voice carrying over the chamber. "Your world will answer. They will beg. They will send us someone to bargain, someone to plead for your lives." Voss, his face bruised but his defiance intact, rasped, "And what if they don't?" Kravax's grin widened, jagged teeth gleaming. "Then Earth itself will burn, and you will hear the screams of your kin across the stars." Marcus said nothing. He stared at the alien commander, memorizing every detail, every word. In the silence of his mind, he prayed Earth would hear, not the call for saviors, but the call for vengeance. The chamber fell still as the prisoners were dragged away, each step heavier with the certainty that their fates had been sealed. Yet behind that certainty lay something the Threx did not see, a promise, unspoken but unyielding. And far away, on a world they dismissed as weak, decisions were already being made. Decisions that would not bring the savior Kravax expected, but something colder, something final. The Chamber of Earth Command was built for function, not grandeur. Walls of steel, consoles glowing with pale light, and a panoramic view of the planet spinning slowly below. Men sat in tight ranks around a central table, each face hard with the knowledge that their words could shape survival or extinction. Director Cole Reiner presided at the head, tall and gaunt, his expression unreadable. He had earned his place not through charisma but through an unrelenting clarity. He was a man who never mistook hope for strategy. Reports had already streamed in from scattered channels. The convoy's distress signal had been intercepted too late, filtered through Dominion jamming. By the time fragments of footage reached Earth, the outcome was beyond dispute. The convoy was gone, its escorts annihilated, its crews dragged into the jaws of the Threx. An admiral slammed his fist against the table. "We can't afford a war with them. Not now. The colonies are stretched thin, the fleet's barely stabilized after the last campaign. If we escalate, we risk total collapse." Another voice cut in, calmer but no less urgent. "Then we negotiate. The Dominion is cruel, but even they respect ransom. We can buy back the prisoners. Show restraint. Prove we are not like them." Murmurs filled the room, some nodding, some bristling. It was a familiar division, pragmatism dressed as mercy, fear masquerading as wisdom. Reiner let them speak, his hands folded before him, until the noise thinned to silence. His voice, when it came, was low, measured, and sharp. "No." One word, yet it cleaved through the chamber like a blade. "No," the admiral repeated, stunned. "Director, we cannot leave our people to die." Reiner's eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand. We will not leave them. But neither will we barter their lives as if they are wares in some alien market. Every ransom paid is another chain around Earth's throat. If the Threx think us prey, then prey is all we shall ever be." Silence answered him, though it was heavy with unease. He rose, the light from the viewport catching the hard lines of his face. "The Dominion believes we will send a savior, a negotiator, Perhaps a fleet to beg, with weapons half-raised. We will not. We will send an answer. Across the table, one of the generals shifted. You mean retaliation? Open conflict. Reiner shook his head once. Not war. War requires parity. We will send a single man. Not a soldier of rescue. Not a symbol of mercy. An executioner. The word lingered, colder than the steel walls. Men exchanged uneasy glances, as if afraid the word itself carried weight enough to draw blood. A hatch hissed open at the far end of the chamber. Boots struck metal in steady rhythm, each step deliberate, until a figure emerged into the pale light. He wore no uniform of ceremony, only the dark armor of field operations, scarred, functional, bereft of insignia. His hair was close-cropped, his face hard, eyes the color of frozen seas. He carried himself not with arrogance, but with a predator's calm. Nothing wasted, nothing softened. Commander Elias Cade, Reiner said, gesturing to the man. You know his name. If you do not, then you know his reputation. Everyone knew it. Cade was whispered of more than spoken to, a man who had spent decades where war was darkest, on worlds burned, in campaigns never logged in official records, in places where enemies learned to fear Earth not for its fleets, but for the solitary shadow that stalked them. His methods were efficient, his morality absent, his loyalty absolute. The Admiral cleared his throat, uneasy. With respect, one man cannot stand against the Dominion. Cade's gaze flicked to him, steady, impassive. One man is enough if the task is not war, but execution. His voice was even, devoid of inflection, yet it carried the gravity of inevitability. Reiner inclined his head. The prisoners matter. Their lives have value. But what matters more is the message. The Dominion expects fear. They will be given something else. They will learn that Earth does not send saviors to plead. Earth sends executioners to end. Some bristled at the words, but none challenged them. The truth was too sharp, too undeniable. Humanity could not afford mercy that would be mistaken for weakness. Cade stepped closer to the table, placing a data slate down with controlled precision. Tactical schematics lit the surface. The Dominion flagship, its escort craft, patterns of approach. They believe themselves untouchable in their own space. That belief is my weapon. I will strike first, without warning. I will dismantle their fleet until the general himself is left with nothing. Then I will kill him, slowly enough that word spreads before his body cools. The room was still. Even men who had seen battle leaned back, as if the air had thickened around Cade's presence. Reiner broke the silence. You depart within the hour. Your ship is prepared. No broadcast, no declaration. This mission will not be diplomacy, and it will not be glory. It will be erasure. Cade gave no nod, no salute. He simply gathered the slate and turned toward the exit, his boots striking the deck with that same relentless rhythm. When he was gone, one of the younger officers finally spoke, voice hushed. We're unleashing him. Do we even control what happens after? Reiner stared at the void beyond the viewport, Earth turning silently below. His expression betrayed nothing, but his words cut the air once more. Control is a luxury. Survival is necessity. The Dominion must learn fear, and Elias Cade is fear given form. Far across the stars, aboard the Dominion flagship, General Kravax presided over his prisoners with arrogant certainty. He boasted to his lieutenants of Earth's inevitable surrender, of ransoms paid and colonies bent. His laughter carried through the steel corridors, cruel and echoing. He expected a savior to arrive, a negotiator in shining armor, desperate to salvage human lives. But already, in the silence between stars, a vessel cut through the dark on a path that offered no salvation. Within its armored hull sat Elias Cade, still and quiet, a man without illusions. His mission was not to rescue, not to redeem. It was to deliver Earth's answer, carved in fire and blood. And when he arrived, no one would mistake Earth for prey again. The Dominion flagship loomed in the void, a fortress of jagged steel bristling with weapons, surrounded by its escort vessels, like wolves circling a carcass. To most eyes, it was impregnable. To Elias Cade, it was a target. His frigate crept along the edge of their sensor net, every movement calculated, every emission masked. He stood at the observation slit, arms folded, watching the alien ships drift unaware of what stalked them. The crew around him worked in silence. They did not need orders. They needed only to follow his lead. The first strike came, without fanfare. A Dominion cruiser shuddered as its engines detonated from within, torn apart by a seed of code Cade had buried in their calm relays days earlier. The explosion blossomed silently in the void, hurling debris across the formation. Before alarms could fully rise, a second vessel convulsed under pinpoint rail fire that punched through its core reactor. What had begun as routine patrol became panic in moments. Cade gave no command to gloat, no word of satisfaction. His voice was flat, clinical. Target the stragglers. No survivors. Missiles cut through the dark, guided by precision algorithms, striking with surgical intent. The Dominion fleet staggered, its formation crumbling. On the flagship, chaos ignited. Kravax's lieutenants shouting, sensors flooded with false readings, comms overridden by echoes of human code. The Predator was inside their walls, and they could not even see his face. When the last escort fell, spiraling into fragments, Cade's frigate slid into the flagship shadow. Grappling hooks of magnetized alloy clamped against alien hull, breaching charges set with quiet efficiency. The corridor beyond ruptured under explosive force, air venting in a howl of atmosphere. Cade was the first through. His steps were measured, each shot placed with finality. Alien guards rushed forward with blades sparking and rifles glowing, but their size and ferocity meant nothing against the calm brutality of his advance. His weapon spat death in clean, precise bursts, each body falling before it could even voice a warning. The few who tried to flee found no escape. His operatives sealed passages, cutting down stragglers without hesitation. In the gloom of the Dominion corridors, the prisoners stirred. Marcus Hale raised his head when the distant thunder of gunfire rolled through the walls. Shackled and bruised, he wondered if this was another cruel game by their captors. But when the door burst inward and a human figure stepped through, cloaked in the smoke of battle, hope sparked, then faltered. Commander Elias Cade, Marcus breathed, half in disbelief. Cade's gaze swept over the prisoners, cold and dismissive. He cut their bonds with a flick of his blade, never slowing, never lowering his weapon. "You're not saved," he said flatly. "You're collateral. Stay out of my path." Voss, bloodied but unbroken, rose to his feet. "Then why come?" Cade didn't look back. "Not for you. For them." And he moved on, leaving silence in his wake. Through the flagship he carved, each step inexorable, until at last he reached the throne chamber. Vast and imposing, it rose like a cathedral of cruelty, pillars of spiked alloy, banners woven from the hides of conquered foes. At its center stood Kravax, towering in blackened armor, his blade a slab of jagged steel that had ended countless lives. Around him, the last of his warriors formed a ring, snarling with hatred. Cade stepped forward, weapon raised. "Your fleet is gone. You're all that remains." Kravax's laugh boomed, defiant despite the ruins surrounding him. "You think one man can unmake a dominion? You think killing me will silence the Threx? We are eternal. You are dust." Cade's eyes were steady, devoid of emotion. "Eternity ends today." The first clash came sudden and brutal. Kravax swung with monstrous strength, his blade shattering stone as it struck. Cade rolled aside, answering with a burst of fire that scorched the general's armor, but did not fell him. The alien roared, lunging forward with relentless fury, each strike shaking the chamber. Cade countered not with force but with precision, shots aimed at joints, movements honed to exploit openings no one else would see. The duel raged, a storm of strength against calculation. Kravax pressed harder, driven by pride and desperation, but with each strike his movements slowed, his breaths grew harsher. Cade's attacks never wasted motion, each cut, each shot a step toward inevitability. At last, the opening came. Kravax swung wide, overcommit, and Cade slipped inside his guard. His blade drove beneath the alien's ribs, deep and merciless. Kravax staggered, choking on his own blood, golden eyes wide with disbelief. Cade leaned close, voice as cold as the void. This isn't war. It's execution. With a final twist, he ended it. The general fell, a titan brought down not by rage or valor, but by precision and inevitability. His body struck the floor with a sound that echoed like a broken bell. The remaining warriors faltered, their courage shattering with their leader's fall. Some dropped their weapons, others fled into the corridors. Cade did not pursue. His mission was complete. Marcus entered moments later with his surviving crew, their faces pale at the carnage. They looked upon Kravax's corpse, upon the quiet man who had felled him, and felt not salvation but dread. Marcus approached cautiously, his voice heavy. "You killed him. You dismantled everything they had." Cade's eyes never wavered from the fallen general. "I didn't come to dismantle. I came to erase." He turned then, finally meeting Marcus's gaze. "You and your men live, but don't mistake it for rescue. Earth didn't send me to save you. They sent me to deliver a message." Voss's voice cracked, raw with disbelief. "What message?" Cade holstered his weapon, the silence stretching before he spoke. "That prey no longer lives here." The chamber fell quiet. Outside, the Dominion fleet lay in ruins, its flagship stripped of command, its warlord dead at the hands of one man. But in the silence that followed, the prisoners realized something deeper. They had not been liberated. They had been used as witnesses. As Cade strode from the throne chamber, Marcus felt the weight of the moment press down like gravity. The conflict was no longer about survival, it was about the kind of force Earth had chosen to become. And in that choice lay a fear far greater than the Dominion had ever inspired. The Dominion flagship drifted powerless, its lights dimmed, its command silenced. Fire still smoldered in gutted corridors, smoke trailing into the void where once a fleet had stood. The corpses of warriors who had terrorized sectors for decades now floated in silence, their jagged armor cracked and broken. Elias Cade walked through the wreckage as though it were nothing more than a completed task, his step steady, his weapon holstered. He had not come for conquest or celebration. He had come to end, and he had ended. Marcus Hale followed with his surviving crew, though none spoke. Their eyes swept the devastation with awe and unease. It was not victory that weighed on them, but the knowledge of what it had cost, and what it revealed. Cade had torn through an empire's pride with the efficiency of a scalpel, but his detachment left them questioning whether Earth had lost something intangible in the exchange. "You've shown them," Marcus said quietly, catching pace beside the executioner. "The galaxy will remember this." Cade did not look at him. "Good. That was the point. And the prisoners?" Marcus pressed, his tone edged with bitterness. "We were witnesses. Nothing more." Cade finally turned, his gaze unflinching. "You lived. That's more than most get. Don't dress survival as betrayal." The words struck hard, for they carried no malice, only truth. Marcus wanted to argue, to insist that humanity was meant to be more than this cold calculus, but the silence that followed smothered his protest. By the time Earth Command received the transmission, fragments of the Dominion fleet's destruction were already spreading through covert networks. Alien empires watched with alarm as reports arrived, ships vanishing in bursts of light, a general found slain, his body desecrated by nothing but inevitability. The Threx Dominion had built itself on the certainty of fear, yet now its own name was whispered with doubt. In the command chamber, Director Reiner stood once more at the viewport, arms clasped behind his back, as the footage replayed in grim silence. He watched Kravax fall again and again, the moment reduced to data, but heavy with consequence. Officers and generals shifted uneasily behind him. None spoke of diplomacy now. None suggested ransom or restraint. The galaxy had been given its lesson, and Earth had been given its identity. Marcus and his crew returned to Earth weeks later, their bodies healed but their minds unsettled. The reception was muted, no parades, no proclamations. Instead, debriefings and silence. Marcus stood before Reiner, his voice firm despite the weight of his exhaustion. "You turned us into a message," he said. "Not soldiers. Not citizens. Just examples." Reiner regarded him with the same cold calm he had worn in every crisis. A message was needed. Would you rather Earth be remembered for pleading? For weakness? "We could be remembered for strength without cruelty," Marcus argued, though even he felt the fragility of the words. Reiner shook his head. "Strength and cruelty are not opposites. They're cousins. Survival decides which cousin is welcomed at the table." His eyes narrowed slightly. "The Dominion will not cross us again. Others will think twice. That is survival. That is victory." Voss, seated at Marcus's side, let out a bitter laugh. "Victory? You call this victory? We lived, but what did we become in the process?" Reiner's expression never changed. "We became feared. And in this galaxy, that is worth more than admiration or mercy." Later, as Marcus walked the halls of Earth Command, he glimpsed Cade departing silently for another vessel, another mission unspoken. The man moved like a shadow, unburdened by triumph or regret. Marcus caught his arm briefly. "Do you ever think about what this makes us?" Marcus asked. Cade studied him for a long moment. His reply was quiet, almost a murmur. "I don't think about what it makes us. I think about what it prevents them from making us." He pulled free and continued without looking back, disappearing into the docking bay's gloom. In the weeks that followed, whispers spread farther than any official declaration. On outlying colonies, on alien trade routes, in the halls of rival empires, the words repeated, "Earth does not send saviors. Earth sends executioners." It was no treaty, no alliance, but it reshaped the balance of power all the same. Fear traveled faster than fleets, and it reached corners of the galaxy Earth had never touched. Marcus found himself unable to sleep, his mind replaying the moments aboard the Dominion flagship. He remembered the fire, the screams, the precision with which Cade dismantled the enemy. He remembered, too, the way Cade's eyes had carried no warmth, no pride, only inevitability. Marcus wondered if this was what humanity would become, predators defined not by compassion, but by the ruthlessness needed to keep predators at bay. Yet even as doubt gnawed at him, he could not deny the truth. The Dominion had fallen silent. Other powers, once circling hungrily, had turned cautious. Earth's convoys traveled more safely now, not because of diplomacy, but because of dread. Cade's name was never officially recorded, never celebrated. He existed in the margins, his deeds whispered rather than praised. To most, he was no hero. To some, not even a man. But his shadow loomed larger than any fleet, and it was that shadow which shielded Earth. Far away, on another silent mission, Cade sat alone in his vessel's cabin, staring at the void. He felt no pride in what he had done, nor shame. He was a tool sharpened for one purpose, and as long as Earth required him, he would continue. Others could debate what humanity had become. He cared only that it endured. The galaxy had expected weakness, had waited for supplication. Instead, it learned that humans would not beg. They would not kneel. They would not even fight by the rules of war. They would send men like Elias Cade, and those men would end threats with a finality that left no ground for compromise. In the silence between stars, that truth echoed louder than any victory song. It was not mercy that would carry Earth's name across the galaxy, nor glory. It was fear, and in that fear, Earth found survival.
Wow.